Hello everyone, I'm Abhishek Choudhary from the Times of India, Nagpur. And if you have even the slightest interest in nature or wildlife tourism, then you do not want to miss the next half an hour. We have a power-packed feature for you where we'll be talking about the two latest wildlife sanctuaries in Maharashtra and a third conservation reserve, which is the newest kid on the block when it comes to the safari circuit map. I'll be joined by my colleague, senior journalist Vijay Pinjarkar, who's without doubt the most passionate wildlife reporter in the country. And he will tell us what all transpired in the State Board for Wildlife meeting held in Mumbai on 6th of June. And what are these words, tiger reserves, a wildlife sanctuary, a conservation reserve? So what are these things, what it means? All of these, thankfully, we have Vijay to break it down for us. After that, we will be joined by Uday Patel, honorary wildlife warden of Gadchiroli district, and Kishore Rithe, member of the State Board for Wildlife and also founder member of Satpura Foundation. Both of them will be talking about the two new wildlife sanctuaries in Maharashtra, and Mr. Rithe will also take us through to what this reclassification means in terms of funds available for development of these areas. And then Sawan Deshmukh, honorary wildlife warden of Amravati district, joins us to talk about the latest addition to Maharashtra safari tourism map. So let's begin this entire discussion by first speaking to Vijay Pinjarkar.
Today was the 18th State Wildlife Board meeting, and in the 17th Wildlife Board meeting, it was decided that Kolamarka would be upgraded as a sanctuary. Now, yesterday they just took up the issue, the agenda. It was the agenda item, and they just upgraded it to this 180 square kilometer area, Kolamarka, which is known for wild buffalo. It was specifically declared as a conservation reserve for that species only. So yesterday they declared it as a sanctuary. Along with that, there were other two areas, the Muktai-Bhavani, which is in Jalgaon district, and 89 hectares of area in Lonar, in Buldana district. That is a private land which will be now a sanctuary, extended Lonar sanctuary.
If you could tell our audience what is the difference between all these terms, जो हम upgrade की बात करते हैं, तो Tiger Reserve all the way to PA.
These are technical terms. Basically, conservation reserve is also declared under the Wildlife Protection Act. But the level of protection when a sanctuary gets and a conservation reserve, lot of difference, because conservation reserve is like a reserve forest where you have all the rights. You can graze. In conservation reserve you cannot declare a area as a eco-sensitive zone. So you can do mining around that conservation reserve. Grazing is also allowed. Tree felling is also allowed. But when you declare it as a sanctuary, suddenly the protection enhances. You get sufficient funds for a sanctuary. There are gates. So certainly when gates come up, automatically protection goes up. Grazing is reduced. So these are the factors related to sanctuary. And if you declare it a sanctuary, tomorrow you will have to declare an area as an eco-sensitive zone. And as per the Supreme Court orders, you cannot do any detrimental activity within the 1 kilometer from the boundary of the sanctuary. So this is the difference. That's why officials are just it is raining conservation reserve in Maharashtra, because you don't have any problems. People can go anywhere. They can graze their cattle. No projects are hampered. So this is the difference over there. In future, one thing I just want to mention is in future, these sanctuaries can be declared as critical tiger habitats. Like they can be declared as tiger reserves also.
Yes, I wanted to take you there only. So for our audiences, explain what is higher than a wildlife sanctuary.
Higher, it is national park and tiger reserve.
Okay. So and what protection
they have the highest protection. Then first comes lowest in the point is conservation reserve, then wildlife sanctuary, then national parks and tiger reserves.
Okay. Thank you, Vijay, for that information. So let's now take a look at the first of the two new wildlife sanctuaries in Maharashtra. One is right next to us in Nagpur. That's at Gadchiroli. So we have with us Mr. Uday Patel, the honorary wildlife warden of Gadchiroli district, to tell us more about this area, Kolamarka.
Kolamarka is located in Gadchiroli district, Gadchiroli में, और वो भी सिरोंचा डिवीजन में है, और कमलापुर रेंज, इसका जो रेंज आता है वो कमलापुर रेंज में है. It is in the southeastern corner of the Sironcha Tahsil. जो डेस्टिनेशन है फ्रॉम नागपुर, नागपुर वी हैव एयरपोर्ट एंड फ्रॉम नागपुर यू कैन कम डायरेक्टली टू गडचिरोली via Umred Road, via Umred Nagpet, and from Gadchiroli you can drive to Allapalli, और अल्लापल्ली से फिर सिरोंचा रोड से कमलापुर, कमलापुर से फिर वहां पर आप हत्ती कैंप है जो कि फर्स्ट उसका एंट्रेंस पॉइंट है कोलामारका सेंचुरी का। सेकंड जो रूट है
ये सॉरी मैं इंटरप्ट कर, तो ये जो फर्स्ट रूट आपने बताया हत्ती कैंप तक, तो अगर कोई नागपुर एयरपोर्ट पे लैंड होता है और बाय रोड आगे की जर्नी करता है तो कितना समय लगेगा हत्ती कैंप पहुंचने में?
नहीं, वो इसके लिए मिनिमम 6 आवर्स। सेकंड रूट है नागपुर टू डायरेक्ट चंद्रपुर टू अल्लापल्ली, और फिर अल्लापल्ली से फिर सेम कमलापुर टू हत्ती कैंप। हाँ, इस पे 4 साढ़े 4 घंटे में पहुंच सकते हैं।
एक बार जब वहां टूरिस्ट पहुंचते हैं तो उनको क्या देखने मिलेगा, एंड व्हाट कैन दे एक्सपेक्ट देयर?
हाँ, अभी तो हत्ती कैंप जो है वही एक सीनिक है बाय रोड। सिर्फ आप हत्ती कैंप तक ही जा सकते हैं, लेकिन जहाँ वाइल्ड बफेलो है इंद्रावती रिवर के पास, वहां जाने के लिए कोई भी जीपेबल रोड नहीं है तो फिर बाइक जो बाइकेबल रोड है वो भी बहुत दिक्कत है। अभी कैसी फुटवेज को डेवलप नहीं हुई है ड्यू टू नक्सलिज्म, और वहां जाना ही है तो सब पूछ पाछ के जाना पड़ता है ड्यू टू सिक्योरिटी कंसर्न, और बाइक से जाना पड़ता है। रोड इतना कोई खास नहीं है, लेकिन थोड़ा सा अगर इनपुट दे डिपार्टमेंट, कुछ बात कर अगर वो बाइकेबल रोड बना सकते तो बहुत ही इजीली इंद्रावती जो टाइगर रिजर्व है और एक एंड में अपना कोलामारका सेंचुरी है, उसके बीच में इंद्रावती रिवर फ्लो होती है, उसके दोनों आजू बाजू हिल्स है, और इसीलिए ये इस दोनों साइड में म्हणजे रिवर के दोनों साइड में फॉरेस्ट है, और ये इसलिए जो वाइल्ड बफेलो का जो कंसंट्रेशन इसी एरिया।
दूसरा उदय जी की जो ये हत्ती कैंप से लेके जो वो रिवर का जो पॉइंट है इंद्रावती रिवर का जहाँ मिलते हैं, ये जो रूट है ये कितना सीनिक है? आई मीन इज इट वेरी ब्यूटीफुल?
No, by seeing the forest, it is very beautiful. At river, the forest is a moist evergreen patch, and further we move away from the river banks, means towards the drier portion. Then we will come across the semi-evergreen patch, and then we also have a grassland type forest on the top of the hills, and it is a perennial streams. River is a perennial one. Plus the plateauic grass is also very good in winter. Since it is an age-old forest, the average height of the forest is very high, from 30 meters to 50 meters it can go, which I don't think it is available except in Gadchiroli than in other districts of the Maharashtra. Plus there are endangered flora also, and plus fauna also. Giant squirrel is found in ample. Plus this year we have also seen tiger pugmark. So availability of tiger is there. Leopard is also there, and sambar is also there, which is absent in most of the places in Gadchiroli, but at there, sambar, barking deer, and nilgai is there. Plus the other sloth bear is also there. Gaur is also there. So all types of wildlife which is found in the TATR, it is also available there. But now need a protection system. If the sanctuary is handed over to the wildlife, then only I think the protection system can be enforced there.
Right. अगर किसी ने प्लान बना ही लिया आना है तो accommodation का, which is the nearest place where accommodation is available for tourists?
Currently there is no accommodation at Kamlapur range, and it is very risky also. But the nearest will be the Allapalli, which is I think some 45 kilometers from the said place. Now the accommodation is very good at Allapalli. The three new guest house also has been built up individually. वहाँ पे 3 एक अलग अलग बाम्बू टाइप की कुटी है, वो भी स्टार्ट करने वाले। तो इन ऑल आई थिंक 8 to 9 individual logouts are there, plus 4 government resort, जो old rest house है, 4 rooms are available with ACs and every and other facilities also.
इसमें दो चीजें सर, ये जो पर्टिकुलर आपने अकोमोडेशन कहा, इसको बुकिंग कैसा करना, और इस पॉइंट से हाथी गेट जो है वो कितना दूर है?
ऑनलाइन तो नहीं किया है, लेकिन DCF अल्लापल्ली if contacted then we can get the booking easily. 45 kilometers.
45 किलोमीटर, अप्रोक्सीमेटली 1 आवर के आसपास लग जाएगा।
1 hour के आसपास।
While Kolamarka and Gadchiroli still has a few more hurdles to cross before it turns into a tourism hotspot, the latest safari tourism spot in Maharashtra, that's in Amravati, is already making waves. Let's speak with Sawan Deshmukh, the honorary wildlife warden of Amravati, and get to know about this area. सावन साहब, सबसे पहला जो मेरा सवाल ये है कि महेंद्री जो लेटेस्ट स्पॉट है, यहाँ पर लोग पहुंचे कैसा, हाउ टू रीच देयर?
बेसिकली महेंद्री जो है वो वरुड़ और पांडुरना के बीच में है। पांडुरना MP बॉर्डर पे है और वरुड़ अमरावती डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, यानी महाराष्ट्र में। तो वरुड़ से भी एक्सेसिबल रूट है, बाय रोड आप जा सकते हैं वहां पे। ट्रेन नहीं जा सकती है। ट्रेन के लिए अगर आपको ट्रेन से रीच करना है तो नागपुर है, नागपुर से आपको 140 किलोमीटर गिरेगा महेंद्री, और उसके बाद में अमरावती रेलवे स्टेशन जो 60-70 किलोमीटर, या फिर पांडुरना एक नजदीक है जो अपार्ट फ्रॉम सेंट्रल लाइन पांडुरना जो जाती है, वो वहां से आपको एक्सेस हो सकता है महेंद्री के लिए।
पे आते हैं कि जब वहां पे टूरिस्ट जाएंगे तो व्हाट कैन दे एक्सपेक्ट, क्या उनको देखने मिलेगा, और कुछ यूनिक पॉइंट्स भी बताइए जो सिर्फ यहाँ की खासियत है महेंद्री की।
ये स्पॉट आज की तारीख में डेवलप होना बहुत जरूरी था, जिसके लिए एक सफारी, क्योंकि सफारी से लोगों की इसमें एक थोड़ी सी अवेयरनेस आती है कि यहाँ पे एक जंगल है और जंगल में कौन से एनिमल्स है। बेसिकली ये कॉरिडोर का भाग है, टोटल जो एरिया है महेंद्री का, ये पूरा ही हमने तो डिसाइड नहीं किया था। ये अंग्रेज जो हमारे यहाँ पे जो ब्रिटिश रूल था, वो जमाने से ये एक नोन प्लेस है टाइगर्स के लिए। आप अगर देखेंगे तो वहाँ पे एक 100 years ओल्ड एक रेस्ट हाउस भी फॉर जो ब्रिटिश रूल था उन्होंने वहाँ पे किया था, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ टाइगर्स कंजर्वेशन के लिए। आज लेकिन उस पर थोड़ा सा हमारा ध्यान थोड़ा भटक गया है, हमें लोगों का डेवलपमेंट दिख रहा है लेकिन जंगल के बारे में अभी भी हम उतना आगे नहीं गए। जो एक आपका पॉइंट था कि वहां पे लोगों को आने के बाद में क्या क्या दिखेगा, तो जंगल में तो टाइगर है तो सब है, आपको वहां पे टाइगर भी दिखेंगे। अभी फिलहाल में एक फीमेल विथ 2 cubs वहां पे एक रोमिंग कर रही है, वहां पे रह रही है 2-3 साल से। उसके बाद में स्लॉथ बेयर है, लेपर्ड्स है, वाइल्ड डॉग्स की साइटिंग होती है बीच बीच में, कभी कभी सांबर भी वहां पे साइट होती है। एक माइग्रेटरी एरिया है, यहाँ पे जो भी है वाइल्ड एनिमल्स आएंगे वो कुछ दिनों के लिए रहेंगे और कुछ दिनों के बाद वहां से निकल जाएंगे। लेकिन टाइगर अभी फिलहाल एक फीमेल टाइगर वहां पे एक बच्चों के साथ में रह रही है, जो कि कुछ दिनों के बाद वहां से निकल जाएगी। वहां पे परमानेंट रेसिडेंशियल नहीं करेगी वो, क्योंकि एरिया है अच्छा खासा बड़ा, लेकिन टाइगर के लिए जितना पोटेंशियल चाहिए उतना पोटेंशियल वहां पे है नहीं। लेकिन फिर भी पानी है वहां पे अच्छा खासा, जंगल अच्छा खासा है वहां पे, हर्बिवरस पॉपुलेशन बहुत अच्छी है, चिंकारा साइटिंग भी अच्छा है वहां पे। तो ये, और उसके बाद में स्पाइडर्स भी, अगर हर बार लोगों में देखा जाता है कि जंगल में आने के बाद में सबको टाइगर ही देखना रहता है, यहाँ पे एटलीस्ट आपको टाइगर दिखेगा नहीं। जंगल बहुत यानी उसमें डिस्टर्बेंस थोड़े ज्यादा है, गांव है आजू बाजू में, उसकी वजह से ग्रेजिंग प्रॉब्लम है, तो टाइगर आपको कंटिन्यूसली दिखेगा नहीं, लेकिन एटलीस्ट उसके इनडायरेक्ट साइटिंग्स तो भी आपको हो सकती है। क्योंकि लास्ट टाइम हम जब गए थे तो दोपहर के 2:30 बजे हमें टाइगर का रोरिंग सुनाई दे रहा था। तो ऐसी चीजें आपको बहुत ज्यादा देखने को मिलेगी वहां पे। ब्लू बुल्स है, स्पॉटेड डियर है, चिंकारा है, ब्लैक बक है, ये इनका साइटिंग आपको अच्छे से हो जाएगा वहां पे।
और सावन सर, जो अभी सफारी आप लोग ने शुरू किया है, ये सफारी कितने देर की है, कितना लंबा उसका रूट है, वो बताइए थोड़ा।
उसमें 2 रूट्स है, एक लिंगा की तरफ का, जहाँ पे मोस्टली अच्छे खासे वाइल्ड एनिमल्स दिखते हैं। अभी फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट ने एक अच्छा इनिशिएटिव लिया है, वहाँ पे वाटरफॉल्स भी थोड़े एक 6-7 नए बनाए हैं, क्योंकि वहाँ पे वाटर बॉडीज अच्छी है, लेकिन और उन्होंने थोड़ा सा उसमें एस्टेब्लिश करके थोड़ा अच्छे से नए कुछ वाटर बॉडीज वहाँ पे डेवलप किया, क्योंकि हर्बिवरस के लिए गांव में न जाने की वजह से उनको वही एक ही जगह पे पानी मिलना चाहिए, उसकी वजह से उन्होंने वहां पे अच्छा खासा पानी का किया है। तो उनके दो रूट्स है बेसिकली, एक महेंद्री गांव की तरफ से और एक लिंगा गांव की तरफ से। तो तकरीबन 2 से 2.5 घंटे की ये पूरी एक राइड रहेगी लोगों के लिए। सिर्फ मेरे ख्याल से चार जिप्सी और एक फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट की ओपन व्हीकल ऐसे वहां पे इंतजाम किए हुए।
क्या प्राइवेट व्हीकल्स अलाउड है?
रास्ते भी इतने पोटेंशियल नहीं है कि प्राइवेट कार आप उधर डाल सकेंगे, क्योंकि बीच बीच में कई जगह पे नाले आते हैं, वहां से प्राइवेट कार आप डाल नहीं सकते हैं, इसलिए जिप्सी ही प्रिफरेबल रहेगा। और मेरे ख्याल से इनिशियल स्टेज पे आपको परमिशन देना प्राइवेट व्हीकल, जैसे एक बोलेरो होगी प्राइवेट किसी की, जैसे थार है, इन गाड़ियों को परमिशन देना अलाउड करना चाहिए, क्योंकि जितनी ज्यादा एक स्टार्टिंग स्टेज में जितनी ज्यादा आप परमिशन देंगे उतना ज्यादा उसको एक्सपोजर मिलेगा। अगर आप वहां पे सिर्फ अगर कोई फैमिली गैदर होती है, 5-6 फैमिली आती है कि भाई आज सैटरडे संडे हम जंगल में जाए, और वहां पे व्हीकल सिर्फ 4 रहेगी, उसके अलावा भी और बाकी लोग रहेंगे, तो उनको परमिशन नहीं मिलेगी। एटलीस्ट अभी स्टार्टिंग स्टेज है तो उनको एक परमिशन अलाउ करना चाहिए, ऐसे तो मुझे लगता है।
एकोमोडेशन का क्या, थोड़ा विस्तार में बताइए कि कहाँ कहाँ उनको एकोमोडेशन मिल सकता है और किस लेवल का, थोड़ा क्वालिटी के बारे में भी बताइए।
Okay. फिलहाल तो वहां पे सिर्फ महेंद्री रेस्ट हाउस है जो अभी भी फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट के अंडर है, और वो एक ऑफिशियल रेस्ट हाउस करके ये है। लेकिन वहां से ही 18 किलोमीटर पे वरुड है, जहाँ पे रहने के लिए अच्छे खासे होटल्स है। बाय रोड भी आप इजी एक्सेस कर सकते हैं, 20 मिनट में आप महेंद्री में पहुंच सकते हैं। अगर मॉर्निंग सफारी भी लेते हैं या फिर इवनिंग सफारी, तो आप वरुड में स्टे कर सकते हैं। वरुड में अच्छी खासी फैसिलिटीज है, पीडब्ल्यूडी के गेस्ट हाउस है वहाँ पे, वहाँ का तहसील का एक गेस्ट हाउस है, उसके अंदर फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट है। तो ऐसे कुछ गेस्ट हाउस है, या और अदर उसके बाद में फिर 2-3 प्राइवेट होटल्स है वहाँ पे, जो कि एक 2 स्टार हम उन लोगों को दे सकते हैं। ऐसे एक रहने के लिए वरुड में अच्छी खासी एक ये व्यवस्था हो सकती है।
So while Mahendri could not make it to the status of a wildlife sanctuary, there's one in Jalgaon which did. And to talk more about it, we are joined by Kishore Rithe, member of the State Board for Wildlife, who will tell us what this new wildlife sanctuary has to offer for tourists and what this latest meeting of the State Board for Wildlife means for tourism in Maharashtra.
See, the biggest potential in Muktai-Bhavani is the Purna river. We know that Narmada, Tapi and Purna, these are the only 3 rivers, west flowing rivers in India, and they are really perennial rivers. And so Purna river flows through Muktai-Bhavani area. So if you just look at that river, if you go there, visit the Muktai-Bhavani Conservation Reserve area, so you will see a huge Purna river basin. And there it comes the Muktai-Bhavani Conservation Reserve. Okay, so there was a river is a lifeline, and there was huge potential in this area. But actually, the forest areas around the villages, that is all grabbed by the Prosopis juliflora, Vedi Babu. So we need to remove that. So forest department really need to do some habitat manipulation work. And this won't be possible without having enough funds. And first of all, forest department will have to make a wildlife management plan. Now the sanctuary has been declared, so they will have to prepare a wildlife management plan. Then the government will allocate enough funds, and first job will have to be done is of removal of Prosopis, and then introducing the grass, local indigenous grass species. And that's how this sanctuary would definitely elevated as far as the habitat improvement work is concerned, and it would immediately respond positively because there are already 9 tigers over there, and even breeding tigers is there. And see, there have been, means it has been demand from the local villagers and politicians like Mr. Khatse, but anyhow the thing could not move forward. And Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra had recently visited Jalgaon, and non-government organizations had demanded to have the tiger reserve in the district. But that cannot be fulfilled because you should have a sanctuary to declare the tiger reserve. And this was only the conservation reserve. So this is a welcome move from the government of Maharashtra, and thanks to Chief Minister Mr. Uday Thackeray Sahab and Environment Minister Mr. Aditya Thackeray, who took up this task and made it possible. So after declaration of sanctuary, definitely things would start moving very fast. The wildlife management plan would be prepared, the funding would be allocated, funds would be allocated, and habitat manipulation works would be started. So you would see excellent tiger habitat around Purna River, and the population would flourish, and it would provide the tigers to Yaval Wildlife Sanctuary as well as up to Gujarat, Shulpaneshwar and Vansda, that sanctuary. And one more important thing, just near Vansda sanctuary, in this particular declaration, government of Maharashtra have also declared Trambakeshwar Wildlife Sanctuary, Trambak Wildlife, near Trambak. So that is just adjacent to Vansda sanctuary in Gujarat. So our tiger have already gone up to Gujarat near Vansda sanctuary. So this, both these moves, means declaration of Muktai-Bhavani Conservation Reserve as sanctuary, as well as declaration of Trambakeshwar Conservation Reserve in Nasik district. Both will definitely pay off for tiger dispersal, safe tiger dispersal from central India to Gujarat.
So how can we reach Muktai-Bhavani, and what are the other potential areas where tourists can go there?
Yes, Miss Jalgaon is very well connected, and people who are visiting Aurangabad and Ajinta, Verul, so they can also very well go to Jalgaon and reach to Muktai Nagar. So Muktai Nagar is a very well-known place, and that's a tehsil place of this sanctuary. And once they go Muktai-Bhavani, then they can also visit Yaval Wildlife Sanctuary. This is very close by. They need to just go to Raver. Raver is just 20 kilometers away from Muktai-Bhavani Conservation Sanctuary. And from Raver, they can go to Yaval Wildlife Sanctuary. Again, 30 kilometers away from that place towards west. So Yaval and Muktai-Bhavani Wildlife Sanctuary. These are the two areas now visitors can definitely should visit.
Yeah, coming back to again Mahendri, you were also in that committee which recommended that Mahendri should be declared a sanctuary. Unfortunately, it was not accepted, and a lot of expectations were there from the locals that it would be declared as a sanctuary. So what happened actually? What went wrong? Can you tell us?
Yes, in fact, the committee was constituted. Committees were constituted for all these three areas: Kolamarka, Muktai-Bhavani, and the Mahendri. And I was part of all the three committees. And if you look at the consensus that we had built up among the committee members, so it is same in all the three areas. And if you look at the decisions of these committees, so the decision is we should declare the reserve forest part as a sanctuary under section 26A1 of Wildlife Protection Act. So because it's a reserve, in reserve forest there are no rights of any villager, etc. So we can directly declare it as a sanctuary. And as far as villages are concerned, in all the three committees, we had decided that these villages also, means those villages which are needed for scientific and objective, to fulfill scientific and objective criteria of wildlife management, those villages need to be identified first and then incorporated into the sanctuary, and the intention should be declared. That's not the final sanctuary, but the intention of the state government can be declared under section 18. And then the collector has to conduct the inquiry into the rights of people, how many villages want to come inside the sanctuary, what kind of resettlement package they want to avail, etc. So that information is shared by the collector, and then collector finally submit the report to the state government, and then state government decide whether 2 or 3 or 4 villages need to be kept inside the sanctuary, and rest of the villages even they can delete it and restore back. So that's a legal situation. That's a legal process, which we have recommended in all the three areas. But yesterday, as Mahendri came first, So the State Wildlife Board had not reached to the consensus like we reached in second and third case. But Honorable Chief Minister and Honorable Environment Minister, they promised that in next meeting, because yesterday there was lack of time. So next time in 15 days or say, the meeting would be conducted and this issue would be discussed in next meeting.
That how there is a contrast now because Mahendri tourism has started and Kolamarka, obviously, as you also said, right now it's probably not the best time to start it and all that. So does Mahendri have a really good potential to develop like Pench and TATR? Do you see that?
Yes, sure. Because if you look at, I won't means just suggest you to compare Mahendri with Kolamarka. Because Kolamarka is a place where we have wild buffaloes. It's an endangered animal and it has reached to the threshold almost, it may go extinct, etc. It is that kind of situation. But as far as Mahendri is concerned, I would prefer to compare it with Bor because Bor used to be of 60 square kilometer. Now Mahendri area is around 67 square kilometers. So that's a good area to start with. And it's all reserve forest. And but the DCF felt that there are some villages. So villages are everywhere. The village and some of the villages which are very close to this reserve forest, they are willing to resettle. So that's the ideal situation where we can keep 3-4 villages inside the sanctuary, provide them opportunity to express their views about resettlement, whether they want the resettlement package or not, and then incorporate them into sanctuary, or you just exclude them. But even with or without villages, that 67 square kilometer area reserve forest is excellent habitat. There are tigers, there are leopards, wild dogs. So all the 3 top predators are there, and there is a good prey base. And the most important thing is it is adjoining to Madhya Pradesh, and in Madhya Pradesh it's a tiger habitat. So it's a continuous habitat, and it provides a stepping stone between Satpura Tiger Reserve at Pachmadi and Pench Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. So
Right.
that corridor would be strengthened if we declare this as a sanctuary. And
Right.
even would come on the road on the PA map of the country, and NTCA will start looking at paying attention and spending some funds in Mahendri. So
Right.
that's the objective why we are asking to declare it as sanctuary.
Right. So the next meeting of the State Board for Wildlife is expected to be held soon. Many people are saying that the decisions taken in the first part are definitely to be welcomed. Though environmentalists and conservationists say that more could have been done, nevertheless, it's a step in the right direction. On behalf of the Times of India, Nagpur, my colleague Vijay Pinjarkar and I thank you for joining us on this really interesting discussion, and we'll see you on our next safari together. Goodbye.